Hey students, it's Dr. Baggett. I'm back to talk to you about day 2 of our year-long STEM challenge. Last time we met to discuss defining the problem, and we identified a number of ways in which we might be able to utilize the black hole space that exists down there by the PE room. We talked last week about making it an auditorium, making it a theater, making it another gym, or ways to integrate those into one mixed-use space. Our challenge today is to brainstorm and put some ideas on paper. Students, in front of you, you should now have a copy of our engineering design process, and I want you to notice at the very top how this is a process. And when we met last week, we were looking at defining and iterating these ideas into concepts. Today, we're going to be looking at brainstorming with your team. When we meet again in December, we're going to be looking at prototyping designs. In January, we're going to be looking at improving those designs and working towards that final presentation piece so that in March, day 5, we can communicate as a homeroom and vote on our overall homeroom design. Now, the winner from each homeroom will go on and we'll be able to present to some key stakeholders, including your school administration, teachers, and some folks at the district office who are going to help us implement our design. What you have in front of you also, part 1 of today's activity, are to address some of the questions that our student groups posted on Padlet last month. If you would, I'm going to go ahead and answer some of those questions. So students, go ahead and get a writing utensil, and if you would take notes while I go through some of the questions and answers. Question number 1. Does the black hole have to be a gym? Does it have to be 3 separate spaces? Auditorium, theater, gym. To answer your question, it doesn't have to be. But I believe that the consensus within our school is that the best use of that space is going to be one that would incorporate all 3 of those components. So we could move chairs out, use it during the day for PE, move chairs back in, and be able to host an evening orchestra presentation or a theatrical performance by our wonderful drama club. So we would need storage space for those chairs, a closet, a stage, a floor that makes the most sense so to be able to move chairs back and forth. To answer your question, it does not have to be 3 separate spaces, but the best overall winning presentation most likely will be one that is able to incorporate those 3 concepts into a mixed-use space. Question number 2. What exactly do we need for each of the 3 components? Gym, auditorium, and theater. And students, this is where we're going to rely on you to help us. In order for it to be a gym, it needs to be wide open. For it to be an auditorium, we really do need the ability to pack chairs in so that we could have our guests sit and appreciate a wonderful musical or dramatic performance. If it's going to be a theater, we're going to need a stage. And we're going to need seating for our guests with some lighting. So those are the basic components that we'll need to be able to fit the needs of our goal. Question number 3. How much space do we need for a music auditorium in a theater? That's a great question. If you think about where we're hosting our current theatrical performances, we're using the cafeteria. And we're filling about half the cafeteria with chairs and using the stage as a presentation piece. Sometimes our drama club just uses the floor, and we utilize about half the cafeteria, which is going to make up about half the black hole. For our auditorium, we pretty much fill the entire gym with our orchestra or our band, and then we have our parents sit on the bleachers. So if you think about relative to the black hole, which is about the same size as our gym, an auditorium would need to utilize the entire space. Question number 4. Can the poles be removed? You'll notice on the back side of your sheet when we get to it, when we have a look at our blueprint, we'll notice that there are 2 support poles, beams, that go from floor to ceiling and support the roof. Those beams probably could be removed, and it would be interesting to see how much it would cost to get them removed. I don't think it's going to be within our budget. So the best plan probably is one that's going to keep us at a reasonable financial goal, and we'd probably keep those poles, but we probably need to wrap them and we would make them look nice. So keep that in your design, but And feel free to go ahead and research how much it would be to get those beams removed so that we could have an wide open space. But they could be removed, but it may not be cost effective. Question number 5. Can the gym have carpet? Absolutely. I want you to think about the most appropriate flooring needs for an auditorium, and that might be carpet. For a theater, carpet would be great. For a gym, it may or may not be. So there are a number of options which we've discussed. Some people have mentioned just using a concrete floor that's polished and looks really nice. Some people have thought about putting a laminate down that could be multi-use, or just putting a low grade carpet down so it would be able to meet all of those needs. What do you think? And that's really the most important thing. Our next question is, what are good seats for the gym? Good seats for an auditorium, good seats for a theater. And a number of questions have been asked if we could use some theater-style seats that kind of bounce up and down as you would in a movie theater. And while those would be fantastic, I have a feeling they'd be a little bit expensive, and they wouldn't be movable, so we wouldn't be able to use it for a gym if that was the case, because those are bolted to the floor. So think about those blue chairs that we typically use in the cafeteria and in the gym, and think about ways that we might be able to utilize those chairs. Those are going to be the most cost effective. We've got them here in the building, and they're movable. It makes for a mobile space. Our next question is, what's the budget, and who's supplying the funds? That's a great question. We don't have a budget. We are looking at trying to implement a plan that is at the lowest cost possible, but meets all of our needs. So as we are looking into year 2 next year of implementing our black hole design, we're going to be asking you to help us find ways that we could fund this project. And how long is this going to take? Well, students, we are looking at rolling this out by the time our 6th graders or our 8th graders and get it moving in that direction. We want to move very quickly, but at the same time we need to have a plan, and that plan needs to have your input. We need to be able to generate some interest and raise some money for it, and that's going to probably take us some time. So we would like to move as quickly as we can, but it won't happen this year, most likely won't happen next year, but we certainly want to be able to, by the time our current 6th graders or 8th graders, want to have something working so that we can have an effective black hole space that can be used in a variety of different ways. Students, at this time, we're going to meet in our teams and we're going to look at developing a brainstorm concept. Now, every student in class has one of these sheets, and you'll notice that the dimensions for the black hole are articulated here. You've got your length, you've got your width. I believe I even put some space for how tall it is. I did not, but that would be good. You also know that you've got your support beams here, and I want you to keep in mind that each of the grid squares is about 2.5 feet by 2.5 feet, just to give you a little bit of a reference. So as you're constructing your design, your individual design, think about where you would like for it to be, what your space looks like. Is there going to be a closet to store away the chairs so we can keep them in the black hole space? Are you going to have a theater stage? Where are you going to orient everything? Are we going to have anything special for entrance and exits? Those are some really good things for you to consider. Maybe consider what kind of flooring you want, where extra lighting would go, and go ahead and sketch it out. Teachers, you help dictate the time that students will need to be able to go through and develop their individual blueprints, because what we're going to do is at the end of homeroom today, I'd like for you to get in your teams and discuss your ideas. We get into day 3 of our STEM challenge. When we start prototyping, we're going to be comparing these individual designs and figuring out as a team how we could take all the ideas for everybody in the room, or in your team, and put them into one team design and start prototyping.